everybody, Carrie with Phoenix Animal Behavior Center here. Today we are going to be making some homemade food puzzles for your pups at home. So these are great whether your pup has already been introduced to food puzzles or maybe this is the first time they will be seeing them. So we're gonna do some super simple food puzzles today with things that you probably already have around the house. The first one that we are going to do is the only thing that you really need for this is going to be a towel and some yummy treats. So we are just using some chicken and beef liver treats today because our little friend Maverick seems to enjoy those. And this is one of the first times he is being introduced to some of these food puzzles. So we're doing them pretty easy so that he is able to be really successful and not get frustrated. So all we're gonna do here is I have our towel folded in half to make it a little bit easier for him, not as much space. And we're just gonna sprinkle some treats and then fold it over. And we'll do some beef ones. So we'll do a sprinkle of treats. And you can do as many or as few treats as you want. And you can also do the folds as tight or as loose as you want. Obviously, the tighter you roll it up, the harder it's going to be for them. And then we are just going to put some kind of right at the edge here to get him started. And then we will give it to him. So we'll walk over. Hi, buddy. Are you ready? There you go. And see what he does. So again, this is his first time being introduced to this towel challenge. So we'll see what he does, how successful he is. Again, we made it pretty easy for him, not using the entire length of the towel so that he doesn't have as much to unroll. And then we made the folds pretty big and pretty loose. So with your dog at home, depending on their level of challenge that you want to work with, you can make the folds tighter, you can use the entire towel and get more rolls and tighter rolls in there. Again, it can be totally adjusted for you and your pup at home. Good job, Mav. One more, I think. Good boy. And you don't have to do anything with your pup here, right? You can just let them use their little nose, let them have that natural sniffing that they, don't always get to use. Let them sniff out those treats and find all that good stuff. Good boy. Good job, buddy. Yes. Okay, can I take the towel away? Ready? Good boy, good. Okay, well, maybe we'll leave the towel on the floor for him. We'll let him just kind of sniff at that since he's still intrigued by the dust that is on the ground. So this next food puzzle that we're going to do is something that you probably already have at home. It's just a very simple egg carton. Again, you can make this one pretty simple or you can make it a little bit more difficult. So you make it super simple by just leaving it open and they just use their little nose to kind of get in those holes. This can be kind of challenging for some dogs because it can be scary to stick their face into things if they aren't used to using food puzzles or using their nose a lot. If you do have a pup that maybe likes more of a challenge, you can close the egg carton. You can either, hi buddy, you can either have it unlatched or you can have it latched. And then they would just use their little nose to pop that open. Maverick has used this one before for breakfast a couple of times. So we are going to make it a little bit challenging for him. But same idea, we're just gonna sprinkle some treats in there for him. And you can do as many or as few as you want. We aren't gonna do too many because we got a bunch of puzzles today that we're working on. Just so he has a little variety. So, and what we are going to do is I'm not going to completely latch it, but I'm gonna leave it just so he does need to use his little nose to pop it open. So it's a little bit challenging, but not the most challenging for him. Because again, I don't want him getting frustrated since food puzzles are not a part of his everyday life. Hi buddy, ready? And if you do notice that your dog gets a little bit frustrated or it's a little bit too hard, you can help them out. Obviously, he is using his brain and figuring out how to get it open, using his paws in there, popping that top open. Good job, buddy. Very good. I know, you're so brave. So that was a little bit harder than what he's used to with the egg carton in particular, but he was able to use that wall and use his paw to be able to pop that top open and get to those really yummy treats. There's still a couple more, I see them. Good job. And it's always fun to see our dogs use food puzzles because sometimes they don't always do what we expect them to do. Sometimes they figure out different ways to use food puzzles that we as humans may not always think is the most logical, but our dogs always find a way to get that delicious high-value food. So the third food puzzle that we are going to talk about today is something that the supplies are things that you already have around your house. So we're just gonna be using a small cardboard box and then strips of fabric. So I just used some fleece because that's what I had spare of. You might use a cut up t-shirt, a cut up towel sheet, whatever fabric you have is totally fine. So this might remind some people of a snuffle mat, and that is where the pieces of the fabric are tied to usually some type of plastic that has little holes in it that you're able to tie the fabric to. This is just kind of a different version of it. So what the dog is going to do is you're gonna sprinkle the treats in, and they're just gonna kind of snuffle around and dig up those treats and find them in these pieces of fabric. So again, super simple, but really great for engaging their nose and getting that brain working. So we're just gonna take some of our treats. I know, but and just kind of lift some fabric, sprinkle, move the fabric around, put some more fabric down. And again, you can make this as easy as hard as you want. You can put as much or as little fabric. Obviously, the less fabric you have, the easier it's going to be for them. But as you can see, the treats are just kind of all scattered around in there. So Maverick is going to use his little nose to dig out those treats. So he's just using his nose to kind of root around and find all those treats that may fall to the bottom as he moves that fabric around. If you do have a dog that is a little bit worried about the box moving, you could always put the box on a non-slip pad, maybe a yoga mat, something like that, if you have a dog that's just unsure of the movement of the box. And you can just hear his little nose working as he's trying to find all those little bits and pieces of the chicken liver that we sprinkled in that box. And if there's some stuck to the fabric, they might pull that fabric out. Again, your dog is gonna do something that you probably don't even predict. There are some dogs that I know that would probably just pick up this entire box and dump it out and throw it across the room in order to get those treats. So you might have a very dainty dog who uses their nose politely and roots around in there, and then you might have a dog that's a little bit more destructive and wants to throw those fabric pieces around in order to get to those really tasty treats. Good job, did you get everything in there? I know, let me see. Looks like it. I don't see any more. But we'll let him kind of work on that for a little bit just in case there's any spare treats in there. And one thing I do want to make sure we all realize is that these food puzzles should be used supervised. I don't want anybody leaving their dog alone with these pieces of fabric or this cardboard that they could ingest and possibly get a foreign body from. So whenever you're working with these food puzzles with your dog, make sure you are supervising them so that they don't accidentally eat something that we don't want them to. So our last food puzzle that we are working on today is the most challenging that we're doing today. And all you need is a piece of fabric. Again, you could use a small hand towel, you could use a piece of a t-shirt, and then a couple of toilet paper rolls. Paper towel rolls work just fine. You can cut them to different sizes. So we're gonna make this one pretty easy for Maverick because he, again, is really new to this brain game world. So we're gonna make it pretty easy for him. And all we're gonna do is fold our fabric up and put it through our toilet paper rolls. And then what we're going to do is add our treats. And what you can always do too is before you fold your fabric, you can add the treats in there if you have a dog that is, again, more comfortable with food puzzles and has been introduced to them more times because they might have more confidence in pulling this fabric out. So you can build up too. You don't have to do the same every single time. You can build up the difficulty as your dog figures it out. So again, we're gonna just make it super simple. So your dog has a couple of human logical choices. They can either pull the fabric completely out, which would release all the treats, or they can tear up the toilet paper rolls, which is also totally appropriate for them to do. So we will see what Mr. Maverick does. Are you ready? I know, let's put it over here, away from the box. There you go, what are you gonna do with it, huh? There you go. So you see he's using his paws to hold down that fabric so it stops moving and being pushed around the room. Good job, you can tear it up all you want, buddy. He's getting his teeth in there, tearing that up a little bit. Some fell out. And if you make it easy enough, some of the treats might fall out, which will just encourage them to keep going because they know that there's something real tasty inside of there. Out, if I push this toilet paper roll off, those treats come out. Bless you. Good job. You made a little bit of a mess with some of the treats that fell out along the way, but that's half of the nose work too, is cleaning up the mess and finding those scraps. So those are the 4 food puzzles that we wanted to introduce to you today. We will have a part 2 with some different household objects that you can use to make more homemade food puzzles for your dogs. If you try these out, definitely let us know. If you take a video, tag us on Facebook, tag us on Instagram. We are Phoenix Animal Behavior Center. Thank you and have a great day.